Well, for more on this now, let's bring in Chinese expert Jean-Vincent Brisset. Jean-Vincent, thanks for taking the time to speak to us here on France 24. This meeting between Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping is really taking all the limelight at this summit. What about their much-vaunted limitless friendship, this limitless friendship between Russia and China? Is the war in Ukraine pushing Russia toward an increasingly isolated China?
Well, Russia is getting back to China. It has been done since some years now, since Russia is fearing the Western influence and the Western and NATO influence that is seems directed against Russia. So it's normal to go to China, and China is interested to get peaceful relations with Russia and make exchanges. That it would be a win-win cooperation if they keep on those cooperation. But what's happening now in Samarkand must not be reducted to the Xi Jinping-Putin meeting. I think there is much more to say about that, since the people, the countries represented there, represent nearly 50% of the world population.
Well, let's talk more about this summit then in general. Some in the West see the gathering of the leaders there in Uzbekistan as a sort of counter summit. Is that what this is? Really something that's taking aim at the West?
It's somewhere it's a counter summit, but it's not a counter summit as it could be a NATO summit or something like that, since OCS is not a very formal organization. OCS is merely a forum where people gather, get bilateral talks, get little multilateral talks, and they have lots of channels of communications open there. And there will not, I don't think there will be a general resolution after the end of the summit, but there will be multi-contact. And among the countries participating, there are India, Iran, Turkey, and that's also a very important thing.
Speaking earlier today, Vladimir Putin told Xi Jinping that he condemns provocation of the U.S. in the Taiwan Strait. I know you said that this shouldn't just be focused on that Putin-Xi meeting, but I'm just wondering if that's linked to that proposed U.S. bill that would send direct military aid to Taiwan.
Well, it's interesting to compare what's happening in Ukraine now and what's happening in Taiwan. In the one side, there are separatist republics in Ukraine that are supported by Russia, and against that, there is Ukraine supported by the Western countries. In Taiwan, Taiwan is a separatist republic from Beijing, and it's supported by the U.S., and China is not supported by, military speaking, is not supported by anybody else.
How significant is it, would you say, that this is the Chinese president's first visit overseas since the pandemic? Why this particular meeting?
Well, we are just before the 20th Congress of the Chinese Communist Party, and Xi Jinping is facing lots of problems in his country about the comeback of the COVID, about economical problems, about isolation from the West, fear of sanctions, and so on. And mainly, he has a very strong internal opposition. He's obliged to speak about corruption to fight against those people. But he needs to strengthen his position before the Congress. So getting outside and getting in a meeting where there are many important people is important for him.
Thank you so much, Jean-Vincent, for speaking to us. Jean-Vincent Brisset there, a Chinese expert on that summit that's going on now in Uzbekistan.